The controller also gives you a great view of your network. It's central, right? So it sees all the access points, it sees all the clients, and it sees all the SSIDs, and it also sees all the rogues, etc., and the interferences as well. So if you have access to the controller, you probably want to spend some time there as well and look around to see if there are any information that could be used to understand what the problem is. Remember, this dashboard is a shortcut to many places. So if everything is green here, you probably have good conditions, at least from a controller standpoint. But if anything is red, then you want to click and go see what happens. Also, you have all this information at the bottom that gives you a view of what happens in the network. And sometimes you'll get a hint here about what may be going on. For example, here, I have a client which is taking almost 50% of my bandwidth. That is something that you may want to be aware of if there is a problem by, for example, a customer reporting that Wi-Fi is not working well, that there is no bandwidth, that it's taking time, it's lagging, etc. So that's on the dashboard. It's already very interesting to see globally what may be happening. But if you go to advanced and you look in the other pages, there are a few pages that may be interesting for you to have a look at. Of course, remember, this monitor page also has a lot of information about what's going on. Rogue, for example, is a nice place to go because these are taking channels that were supposed to be yours or using by you, and these are also operating on those channels, so there may be some channels that are not available because there is activity not from you, not from your client, but from the other neighboring or rogue network. So you can see here everything about those, the channels, how many access points are seeing those rogues, and of course what RSSI, what kind of signal level they are at. Of course, if the signal is high, that means they're close, so their clients are going to be close as well. They will be taking some of your bandwidth. In the same logic, here in summary, you have a view of your access points. You want to check if the radios are up. Sometimes the radios can be down, and it's actually kind of complex to troubleshoot because there may be many reasons why a radio is down. So here, all my radios are up, but they may be down in multiple places. So if I click on the radio itself, you see I'm on the BG radio. If I go at the end and go to detail, I can see more of the status, including the power, number of packets that were sent, and also the transmit characteristics. And if I go back and go to that band instead, I can also go to TSM. And TSM is useful if you have some real-time applications like voice, because we can collect something which is called traffic stream metrics that you have to configure on the controller. But that page will then give you some performance information about your clients. How many milliseconds for the packets on the upstream side and how many milliseconds on the downstream side. So that's very useful when you troubleshoot real-time information. But here, it's data, so there is no information. Also, if you go on the monitor page, there is the list of your top WLANs. And if you click here, you'll see the characteristics. So you may want to check some configuration detail to see if the SSID is configured the way you expect it to be. Back on the monitor page, you also have your clients. So if you go on details, you will see your clients one by one. And if your client, the one you try to troubleshoot, is connected but in trouble, you can see here that client, and you can see some information about the access point, etc. And if you click the client, you will see everything about that client, from not only its security scheme, but also how many frames were sent, how many frames were received, all the details about that client activity. There is also an AVC statistics, so if AVC is enabled, you will see which application that client is running and how much bandwidth each of the applications the client is running is consuming on your network. But of course, if AVC is not on, that tab is pretty useless. Back to monitor. On the lower right, you have the same view of AVC, but this time at global level for all SSIDs and all applications on all SSIDs. So that's also a nice view of your network load that gives you a view of how many applications are being run by how many clients. This is of course only valid if AVC is enabled in your SSIDs, right? So the SSIDs that do not have AVC enabled will not have that information. So you need to go here and enable AVC if you want it to be included. So don't forget, this monitor page may not show the entire activity for the entire network. It will just show those SSIDs that have AVC enabled. So if I go back to my network clients and I check one which is on an SSID that has AVC, there I can see this detail about that client, including the applications upstream, downstream, aggregate, packet counts, byte per second, etc. So it's very easy. If you want to run some tests because you feel that something is going wrong, you can always clear these stats and ask your client to restart the communication and you'll be accumulating values here in that page. And if you refresh every 90 seconds, there will be an update on how much traffic has been happening since you cleared the statistics. Also, on the right side of the monitor page, you have the most recent traps. So this is something you can see from the SNMP configuration of your controller. Those are the traps that could be sent to a monitoring station, such as Cisco Prime Infrastructure. And that's always useful to check because there may be some information that will tell you if things go wrong and why they go wrong. And of course, you have all the other monitor pages on the left side, which are not directly shown on the main page, but that you can go to check what is happening if you're suspecting a problem somewhere. For example, statistics about access points, when they joined, how long they took to join, when was the last time they joined, etc. So all those may be very useful to get more information. Mobility also, if you ever do some roaming or some anchoring, the mobility page will give you information about packets that were exchanged between the controllers in the roaming process or in the anchoring process. And if you see any failed here, you want to know why. CDP also is useful to expand your view beyond the controller to the network. You can have CDP for the controller, but also for the access point. So you can see which switch the APs are connecting to, and that may help explain why VLAN is not supported or why traffic is not flowing the right way by looking at that switch as well. Rogues can also be seen more in detail here, and you can configure some policies about rogues, which is something which is beyond the scope of CCNA, but those policies can make a rogue friendly or label it as malicious. And here from that page, you can also update the status of the rogue to contain it, and that's sending deauthentication messages in the name of that rogue to block its clients. Be careful, that is going to affect your channel and may have some legal consequences. So be aware of this possibility, but don't play with it without knowing exactly what you do and where the rogue is. If the rogue is not in your network, and if the rogue is a legitimate access point of your neighbors, you should never use that feature. When you go to applications, you see what applications are being used, and that brings you back another way to bring you back to AVC. Profiling is also useful to show what kind of clients you have, and if you have a specific issue, you may target a specific client and know that it's only affecting one or other type of client.